A land of cold, clean water, high mountains, clear skies. Our troubles are left behind. Our crops grow without blight. Our children play in the streets. Where once was only dirt and grass, now houses rise for our families. Unknown word, for our knowledge, and life is good again. Translator's note. The next passage seems to occur after a break. An unknown amount of time has passed in the narrative. Some catastrophe befell the writer's people. Resuming translation. A great trial was held for an esteemed tribesman. Their behavior was aloof, foolish, absent-minded. The defendant could not provide adequate answers for their behavior. Laziness? Translator's note. It seems the court proceedings had trouble bringing serious charges against the person in question. There seems to be a combination of position, their rank or office, and another factor I'm having trouble understanding. Something about not being themselves? Perhaps afflicted with a type of mental illness. There are forms here in the unknown language isolate which may give greater complexity. But sadly, they are poorly used in the Akkadian here. Resuming translation. The trial culminated in a search of the accused's household, but the results never became known to us. Panic grips our tribe. Rumors abound and spread like fire in a dry field. Tales of stacks of bodies. A house full of music and death. Few had returned to tell the tale of the search, and many of us started to disappear from that day forward. Strangers wearing masks, shaped like former friends and family, stalked the streets. Wailing became the song of our city. Few of us now remain. We must find the stone. We must yearn for a stone? We cannot remain here. Hamau. Strangers. Invaders. The Hamau stalk our streets, beckoning the unaware to them. We plug our ears against the cords carried on the breeze. We cannot trust anyone outside this small group, this lone house now. We are an island amidst familiar faces seeking to harm us, to devour us. Fear is thick in the air. What if we are already infiltrated? What if we are Hamau already? How can we know, and how can we stop it? We must flee this haunted place. We must cross over once more. Preparations are being made for the ceremony of Nabalkutul. Translator's note. This word has a number of usages in Akkadian, but is placed here with this crossing over. I have a hunch about this, but let's see how this passage plays out. Resuming translation. Our senses are sealed away, save for our leader, who will pick his way to the Pilsu under cover of night. The Pilsu, the hole, our way out. Interesting. As we yearned for this land, we now yearn for another, and make our offerings to... Translator's note. I'll be doing some more cross-referencing in attempts at sort of untranslating what might be a typo or corruption of the Akkadian script here, but I'm fairly certain I've not seen this symbology before. The symbol here is much larger and utterly unlike the rest of the script's hand, and what's more, it's repeated exactly in the unknown language at the back of the book. The symbol seems to carry greater meaning, or perhaps is like a proper noun? Something the language isolate didn't have a translation for in Akkadian. So the author simply took the lazy route and put it in both places, expecting the reader to know what it meant or, Really, all I have is conjecture past this point. I will leave a note with this work log for this particular symbol I have no name or other reference for thus far. Given the context of offerings being made, however, I find it not far-fetched to assume this is probably the sigil of a deity or some protective power. Resuming translation. The Pilsu swallows us up. Our yearning is rewarded. Another stone is placed in our care. Another Pilsu opens wide. Already this land reeks of corruption. And once again, we are strangers. This land reeks of filth. Fetid pools holding worms of vicious temper gnaw at us. The people here take up arms against us. With spears and shields they harass and slay us. We are left with no choice. Translator's note. There are quite a few instances here where the story being told ranges from bizarre to almost incomprehensible. This is the worst case of the Akkadian language seeming to be incapable of properly transliterating the words of the isolate. I'm finding instances of new words and sigils in the unknown language not found previously, and the resulting Akkadian translation is just sounding odd. As in, I'm simply unsure of what it is going on with the story anymore. At this point, I'll just be translating the text as literally as possible, and trying to make sense of it as I do more translation work down the line. Resuming translation. We must apply our strengths and overcome them. We are not given to the air. We are not given to the caves. We are not given to the worms. Upon the mushrooms, warriors clad in green armor cluster together, a bulwark against all who invade, tall and strong as the roots they defend. We are faster, and they possess little intelligence. Like a thief, we steal into their forest of stalks and plant ourselves among them. Unlike their bodies, their minds are pliable. We bend them to our will. Now they form a shield wall on our behalf. They see us now for what we are, superior as we nest inside their brains. Might mean like an idea being planted? Propaganda, maybe? Their thoughts are filled with only thoughts of us. Our will, our survival, our deeds. We have bought peace for now. Now we turn to save those who remain in the land of the false, the Hamau. Doesn't sound pleasant at all. Starting to get a handle on the script, however. Every time I feel like I'm closer, though, I realize more and more how clumsy this translation is. Paired with the knowledge that this text is so far removed from the Akkadian language and people, I wonder if this was being rotely transcribed by others, who themselves were not fully aware of what they were translating, just doing their best to copy the text word for word. No guides or side notes are offered in the text, no hint of greater context. Never have I so strongly wanted a foreword by the author, lost with the first part of the book, if ever there was one. This land cannot bear us, nor we bear this land any longer. For too many generations, the stink of this land has risen like an affront to the heavens, such that even the dirt cannot bear it, and it covers us up in retribution. Everything that crawls, that flies, that swims, despises our presence. If not for our mighty shield-bearers, ever strong and vigilant for years without end, we might not last another single year in this place, let alone another single season, or whatever may pass for a season in this maggot-ridden filth. We have made use of the length of our time here, and busied our hands with the work, the rescue of our people. A few more than we thought escaped from the Hamau of the land before. It is a wretched deliverance, but deliverance all the same. Now the way before is sealed shut. Any who remain are now well and truly lost to us. We have done all that we can to bring out the living and the dead from among the jokes, the mockeries. The way forward is made ready. Yes, another Nabal Kutul, another place, another hole, another Pilsu. Translator's note. I had made reference in an earlier segment that I wasn't sure how many authors may have been responsible for this text. The language and script are the same, as if copied by one hand, but this is almost certainly a different author. The language is a bit more flowery, and there's a great deal of assumption being made that some time has passed since the last segment and this one. Either that, or the generations are quite short-lived. Not all that surprising, given the subject material and the average lifespan of ancient humans. If this is indeed the story of an ancient human at all. Postulate for another time. Resuming translation. Proper name here. Once again, author not too keen on coming up with an Akkadian variant. It just has the sigil repeated from the unknown language in the Akkadian part of the text. Whoever I am, have spent long seasons with the waxing and the waning of the stalks? Tree trunks? Odd usage there. Have spent much time studying the ways of our predecessors. Our ancestors performed the Nabal Kutul and thought themselves perfect, godly, holy, that only they could divine the will of something. I don't have an Akkadian word for these. The larger symbols used in prior texts that I guessed were deities are used here. A cluster of them, what's more. Maybe like a pantheon? I'm just going to go with gods for now. The predecessor thought they alone could divine the will of the gods. I have studied longer, deeper. I have gained insight from communing with our servants. I have searched back, as far as our history goes. There are those more ancient still. They were the true perfecters of the will, the wanting, the desire to connect, to bind ourselves to the gods. Our fates, our destinies could be changed. But the rituals, and the asking, and the will, all must be changed. The predecessors were wrong, or at least imperfect. The ancients knew, and the ancients took their secrets with them. Some of them. And some of them I still have, and I will find the Nabal Kutul to bear us out of this disastrous land. This I swear. Fascinating. It seems like there was a sudden surge in the popularity of their religion. Perhaps given the unforgiving climate they found themselves in. Perhaps a power struggle where the priests found themselves in charge. The new author rather sounds like a priest for some reason. They definitely have more emphasis on these gods, if gods they are. They bear an odd kind of weight in the text. Like their names were too pure, or too important to transcribe an Akkadian name for them. I can't think of many other reasons you just wouldn't use the language you're including in the book to describe these beings. The issue with translating the remaining portion is the author change. As I noted in my last recording, it's becoming evident a new person wrote the last segment, possibly due to passage of time between the events related to the Hamau and those of the maggot-ridden filth that they decided to move to after the first Nabal Kutul. The Nabal Kutul, then, seems like a rite of passage, like a mass migration, likely accompanied by offerings to these gods I keep finding, for good luck locating greener pastures. The mention of this Pilsu, or hole, grand spectacle assembles in the clearing. Flanked by our mighty warriors, I told the people of our plans for another Nabal Kutul. Long have we run from place to place, seeking a home suitable for us, for our progeny. We thought our former dwelling to be the last home, the last time we need migrate. But this too proved short-lived. I tell the people that our leaders did not understand. They were blind to the proper forms and angered the gods. Wait, there's only one symbol here this time. A single god? I don't have a name for this one yet, but it looks like he's talking about a single entity. They angered the god, and in their folly brought the ruin of our shelter upon us all. I told the people I was not blind, nor foolish, and had studied what remained of our great libraries. I now understood the proper forms. Still, the people are dismayed and untrusting. But I saw, for the first in a long while, hope lives inside us once more. Much must be done for the success of this rite. We are few, but we are not alone. We will task our warriors with bearing the sacrifice. They are too dull to resist us, and have served their purpose well. What better glory have they now than to lay the last of their lives down for our passage? Their strength will make a pleasing... Miss Vo? Let's see, where was I? Ah, yes, some kind of ritual. The strength of our warriors will make a pleasing sacrifice. The warriors are not as many as they once were, but it is enough as a sacrifice. I consulted again with my advisors. There are many more forms here than previously thought, and we must make good our promise to the people. And yet, I alone must speak with the god. Let this be the last Navalkutul. Let this lead us to paradise. Translator's note. I stopped here for the day because it seems we have yet another author shift, and so soon after the last. I didn't get too far in the new segment yet, and the new sentences are immediately short and bleak. I just did the first sentence for now. It's referring back, I think, to the last author, whose name I can't translate yet. It just says, he was wrong. It matters not how far we run. It matters not how hard we fight. It all matters not. We run, we fight, we scream for mercy, and still the lands we tread will show us none. Where mercy has fled, so too hope follows, and it cannot be found. I cannot see the difference in the faces of the hollow and the living now. We are all equally void, empty, poured out. Of the few who remain, none now cling to lofty, lost ideals of finding a home for us. We simply sway in the breeze, moving from one calamity to another, as a blade of grass, jumping from furnace to furnace. What is the purpose of our running? We are a doomed people. Our fate was set out for us. We should not be as two people, but one, unified in eternity. But now, those who see not and hear not, but remain, are numbered as many as the remnant who think and see still. A great multitude, herded about, immune to peril and blind to the grief that befalls their children. Theirs is the lesser evil now. We had thought them unfortunate, but behold, it is we who have the greater misfortune, for we teeter on the brink of extinction. None shall remember we struggled for even this bare existence. If not for a brave few, the cunning, and the strong. I should not even be able to make this record. We emerged from our ritual, led on lies of a heavenly place, and swiftly saw our leaders dispatched by unseen assailants. The strong protected us, and we were able to complete our passage. The survivors dealt with bitter cold, the likes of which have not been seen in many journeys, for many seasons. We walked upon water, solid, deeper than we could dig with our tools, and only found refuge when the cunning made us a dwelling, for their practice had made them very wise in the ways of survival in a land of hatred. I asked my people, after a number of days had passed, why we chose to stay at all. The answer was always the same. At least the sun touches our faces once more. We fight, we freeze, we die, but we do so under a clear sky. There's a lot to digest here. The latest Nabal Kutul had, apparently, disastrous results, and I find this mention of the remnant, being as many as the ones who see not and hear not, but remain, quite interesting as well. I think there's also something implied in the distinction of the strong and the cunning, perhaps an attempt to organize groups by their uses. Based on this latest passage, I could easily guess the strong to be a warrior caste, but the cunning are a little tougher to identify. They seem to be wise men or artisans of some kind. They could even be hunters or survivalists. Somehow the two working together were able to preserve the fraction of their people that remained. It seems the author of the last portion died upon arrival, and left behind an embittered people. There's also the point of this mention of clear sky. In the Akkadian, sky has the same symbol as Anu, the Akkadian supreme or highest god. I bring this up because they didn't hesitate to give Anu the Akkadian symbol, although there is a different character for this in the unknown language in the back of the book. If my theory about the other important sigils is correct, then those sigils are representing an entirely separate pantheon from the Akkadian deities, given that they likely had some idea of these other gods, but refused to translate them into Akkadian, as a willful decision on the part of the author. Perhaps to set them apart? Perhaps, as I increasingly start to suspect, this group had a separate belief system and culture, fully distinct from the Akkadians, and this two-language book is simply a way of attempting to preserve the unknown language, using a language that was more commonly known. Indeed, there may be nothing left of these people, save the evidence which rests here, on my very desk, and a few scratches on some very weird hunks of rock. The caverns of darkness and fire reminded the old ones too much of what befell our people, and the worms ever gnawed at us and our homes. This new land is harsh, but it is bearable. Here, in the shelter of our own creation, the work of our hands and minds shields us from what lies beyond. We learned the lessons well, and applied ourselves to the task of carving a home out of the rocks. Rocks of water. Translator's note. I believe this to mean ice, based on context and other clues. Fairly simple use of two words combined where none exists in the original language. There are other ways to translate things like this, but it looks like the author took a shortcut and slammed the symbols for water and rocks together. Just making a note of it here in case that isn't quite right. Resuming translation. Warmth arrives from out of the earth, borne on great hollow trunks set deep in the ice. Where there is warmth, water pools below, and we fish for our sustenance. Few creatures live outside the safety of the trunks. The stalks? Another odd way of saying this. I wonder if they meant more like tree trunks? I'll save this symbol for later study. Feels like I'm back to barely making headway. Let's see what I have for the rest. Our greatest danger now lies beyond. While we set about bringing all our people through and making homes for those who remain, we are confined to this place. Creatures roam the white plains beyond, which cast no shadow and are seen not by the eyes. Woe befalls any who cross their paths, and already we have watched helpless while some of our warrior brethren are carried off screaming until the wind and the howling become as one. None have returned, and we know not how to seek them, nor stop these dread monsters from stealing us away. It is as if the very air has turned against us and spits on us for our sorrows. I dread the days to come. Already I have heard the people talk of what is to be done. Many are afraid of this world, but neither can we return. We have food enough, but it may not last. There is nothing to grow here, no soil for cultivating, and no seed to be planted even if there were. Slowly, their thoughts dare to turn to the future once more. They say this is no world for children or empires. We are sore in our hearts still from the last journey, but already they speak of another passage. Another Nabal Kutul.
Nabal what?
Nabal Kutul. That's the closest pronunciation I have. It's a word that means like crossing over, but it has quite a few meanings, actually. It can mean going over terrain, usually a river, or it can mean going to a place, even abstractly, like entering someone's thoughts because you're thinking of them. It carries the idea of transitioning to something or somewhere else, or being in revolt or opposition to something and moving on from it.
Interesting. Sorry, go on.
It's quite all right. Sometimes going over things I think I have a grasp on is just what I need. Let's see. Where was I? Here's another annoying bridge moment.
What's that?
There are no indicators in the text for changes of authorship or passages of time, but I've gotten the gist that there are gaps in the narrative where time passes or the narrator changes. Usually I realize that based on how the sentence structures morph and the use of new words that the previous author never resorted to. But there's a symbol this author in particular uses that's just a series of these curved lines. I think they were trying to indicate this was supposed to be a break, but it all just gets lumped together on the page, and it goes on without context for the break. The curved line made me think of a bridge, so that's what I call it. All right. Looks like some time has passed since the last passage, and it ended with a mention of Nabal Kutul. I wonder if they decided to pack up and go again. Seems to be the running theme here. We strictly forbade it, but we found some of our people had begged for a pilsu. They can bear it no longer. Every few nights, the Whispering Ones steal into our abode and pluck another out from our fold. Still, they cast no shadow, and still, we can only stop them every now and then. We have saved a few, but they are changed, fearful and speaking only of death and cold. They hide themselves away, refusing to go out, and starving themselves nigh unto death. They will do no work, nor go anywhere. Instead, they have brought this upon us, a pilsu, after we swore an oath not to do so anymore. We cannot be rid of it. We know already No cave is too deep, no lock is too strong, and now it is a temptation to us. So quickly they have forgotten. We do not know anything. How can we bear to bring another sacrifice upon ourselves? The gods do not listen. The gods do not heed us. They deliver plague upon plague, calamity upon calamity upon our heads. We cannot stay here, and we cannot go from here. We cannot do anything. It is pointless to try. Now they gather together and prepare the ritual. A small group has become most of the village. A few of us understand and simply wish to live out in peace here. We will watch who remain in this city that has become a tomb. They have become a burden too great to bear, and so we will watch until we can watch no more. There is nothing on the other side. There is nothing on the other side, I say. I will remain and let the sun shine upon me. I would bid you a safe journey and a restful place, but there is none of these things anywhere now for us. There is nothing on the other side but more wanderings and death. Now I will remain with those who remain. Farewell, and take this with you, and forget while you may. And so ends that little segment. On such a dire note, too. Whoever wrote this portion certainly sounds like they'd given up. May 14th, 2021. Translation work for Vincula. I'm afraid I don't have a compelling story today. It looks like our latest author was a bit sloppier, or at least not given to narrative effort. Rather than a semi-coherent tale of tragedy and woe, this segment is a list. A long, long list of ingredients, proper forms, short phrases that I assume need to be uttered. If I'm not mistaken, the book is now describing a Nabal Kutul, or at least attempting to. There's a lot of confusion, and sometimes the book says, do this, followed shortly by, definitely don't do that same thing, a few lines later. It looks like my assumptions about it were correct. It is a type of religious ceremony, with various parts needing to be used and motions to be taken. The strange thing is, it looks like they were cobbling it together themselves. It's oddly scientific in its approach, like they were having to get it right as they went along. I can only assume further, then, that they took signs and omens as proof they were correct or incorrect with each use. I can't imagine what they might have come up with in the end, but let's try and find out. Here we have water rocks. Ice again, I'm presuming. There's a simple no here for that one. Now there's a list of symbols with the same base type. It looks like these are all based on fish. Fish organs, maybe? The list is extensive, but the analysis afterwards rules them all out, with a comment about how the fish are to the sea, and we are to the land. Evidently, they were not suitable. The next segment is extremely confusing. It looks like they were trying to come up with a term for whatever they were using next. Sometimes the base is utuku, and other times it's zakiku. I think is how it's pronounced. I could be butchering that. Sometimes that means wind or gust of air. Other times it means like a ghost, or a demon, or a foul spirit, or just empty void. Maybe they were testing out various gaseous substances, but had no translation for them in Akkadian. This is so frustrating. I thought this was hard to translate when it was just a confusing story. Now I'm barely getting the gist of this. All right, let's move on. It's not terribly important anyway, I think. I can't find any similarity between these symbols and those of Breach 2's pedestal and matching Lingstone. I suppose I should be thankful for that, at least. Looks like these all turned out to be dead ends anyway. The end comment says that these materials are precious in cost of life and labor, and would make no home for us. Whatever that even means at this point. Let's see. Now we have more rocks. Okay, this is definitely rocks, not just ice this time. Oh joy, a long list of them. Wait a minute. The way they combined the Akkadian Agnu, or rock, with various modifiers, it looks like they may have been describing various minerals or gemstones. There's yellow, solid, sharp rocks and blue, bright, hollow rocks. I think these may be describing, very clumsily, mind you, different gemstones like topaz or sapphire. I can't be sure at all that's exactly what it's translating as, but given our contextual clues, I wonder... Wait. Agnu in Akkadian is closely related to the unknown language symbol on the Linkstone. It's very close. Now that I'm seeing it over and over here, I may be able to find... Let's see. Green... dull? Smooth. Purple... hidden... sharp. Come on. Eureka! I found it! Yes! I found it. Blood, morning, sharp. What? What does that mean? And it looks like that was considered acceptable. The blood of the morning, bled from the stars, lead us to the mountain heights. I need to inform everyone. I think we've had a breakthrough at last. This next segment is most illuminating. I've skipped a few pages, only because the list of materials for a novel Kutul dragged on for a bit, and finally broke away long enough to describe their next destination. At least, that's what I'm still guessing the previous list contains. The writing is still truncated. Professional, maybe. It doesn't bother with flowery language, just a few brutal descriptions. I'm getting ahead of myself. I think you'll see why this is important to our next phase once I read it. Our boldness has come to fruition. We have not understood for so long, but we used the heart of the forest. Trees, I think. We used the heart of the trees to carry us to a new world. It burns up all it touches, but the effort was worth it. This place is horrid. The air chokes and burns and blots all from view. The creatures, though few in number, are many times greater than our pitiful host, and they are covered in great stony armor. It is everything we hoped for. In embracing suffering, we have gained knowledge. Our minds expand. We grasp outward, not blindly, but through the smallest of holes in a wall, and the light of understanding beyond reveals our shadowed thoughts. We remembered the warning left to us by those who remained with those who remained. Translator's note. This is the second time I've seen this expression. Those who remain with those who remain. I can't help but wonder if this is describing two separate groups. It seems odd that they would need to distinguish between those who stay behind and those who stay behind with them. I wonder if they're referring to their fallen, their honored dead. Plenty of traditions across many cultures about not forgetting those who have passed on. If that's so, this culture makes a point of leaving a few to watch over them. Worth noting. Resuming translation. We remembered their warning, but this yearning of ours will not go unrewarded. We will find a way. Discovering our surroundings here is difficult. The land fights us at every turn, but perhaps we may find a suitable offering. To aid us, we have raised up another servant, though we are too few and spread too thin to make an army. No, this is a simple beast of burden. They watch over us and warn us of danger, nothing more. They are... Oh, interesting. This word here, a lamasu, a deity that acts like a guard, or gives good luck. We might say like a guardian angel in modern terms. They are our lamasu. With their aid, our work continues. The next world, the next Nabal Kutul, will lead us to a land we may prosper in. We cannot take on the burden of too many offerings. So much has been lost already. Yet one more. Yet one more. And we will find our home. They didn't find their home. Not yet, anyway. I am nearing the end of the book, but there's at least one narrative segment remaining. They went through another list of materials, the one I found the rhodonite on, but I've already skipped around to find that. For now, I know what we need. This heart of the forest that burns all it touches. I don't have a remote idea how it relates to a forest or a heart, but I know something that burns just about everything, all right? And the sigil corresponds with something liquid and silvery, if I'm cobbling the parts of this rune together correctly. The implications are pretty clear. We're going in reverse. They use the rhodonite in the next list, and once I translate the next section, I'll be unsurprised to find it's describing Gaia. I'd bet my bottom dollar on it. Which means, since I'm missing the beginning of the book, I'm missing where it all begins. The reason they felt the need to travel so far in the first place. Questions for another time. I need to let the team know the bad news. We're going to need to use the tiny bit of Quicksilver Lake material we have remaining, unless the lake has miraculously survived the tremendous hailstone storm we left in our wake. But I should never hope for happy endings for these kinds of things, should I? At least once I get done with the next segment, I can begin on the parchments left behind on Specimen 1. Here's hoping the language hasn't transformed too much in the countless eons. That's all for now.